This woman, her name is Frankie. This is how a single moment of not saying 3 words destroyed an entire marriage. My name is Emma, and I'm here to share real stories about real relationships. Today's story comes from a woman who thought she was the hero in her own narrative, only to discover she'd been writing herself as the villain all along. Frankie, 32 years old, married, and about to make a series of choices that would unravel everything she thought she knew about love, trust, and her own reflection in the mirror. It started on an ordinary Friday night at a downtown bar. But by the time the story ends, Frankie would lose her husband, her friends, her home, and nearly her job, all because she couldn't see what was right in front of her until it was far too late. This story isn't just about a marriage falling apart. It's about how our own insecurities can become the very weapons that destroy what we love most. It's about the danger of always assuming the worst. And it's about how sometimes the person we trust least is ourselves. So settle in, because this journey is going to take us through jealousy, accusations, betrayal, and the devastating moment when someone finally realizes they've been wrong about everything. Frankie had been fighting with her husband Ned all week. Something about work stress he couldn't shake off. She loved him, she insisted, but there were moments when his emotional needs felt suffocating. She craved space. She craved attention that didn't come with obligations attached. That Friday night at the Viper Room, she just wanted to breathe. To feel like herself again, not just someone's wife or someone's emotional support system. When she approached the bar to order drinks, a man struck up conversation. We'll call him Logan. Dark eyes, well-dressed, the kind of guy who talked about investment portfolios and made it sound interesting. More importantly, he made her laugh. For the first time in 7 days, Frankie felt seen, not needed. Just seen. She was enjoying this feeling, this lightness, when she sensed movement behind her. Ned had appeared, hovering awkwardly, wearing that expression she'd grown to resent. That wounded, anxious look that made her feel guilty for simply existing in a space without him. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, watching, waiting. Finally, he extended his hand to Logan and announced himself. I'm Ned, Frankie's husband. The words landed like stones in water. The conversation died instantly. Frankie felt her jaw tighten with embarrassment. Why did he have to be so obvious? So possessive? So desperate for acknowledgement? Logan politely excused himself soon after. The spell was broken. But what happened next was what truly set everything in motion. Ned, without a single word, walked away mid-conversation and headed straight across the bar to where 2 young women had been standing. Frankie watched in disbelief as her husband started chatting with them, laughing at something one of them said, acting like everything was perfectly normal. To Frankie, this was calculated revenge. She'd had an innocent conversation, and now he was deliberately seeking out other women's attention to punish her. The double standard burned in her chest. By the time they got home that night, the silence between them was thick enough to choke on. Frankie gave him the cold shoulder, convinced she was the wronged party. He'd embarrassed her, then retaliated like a child throwing a tantrum. 3 days passed. The tension only grew thicker. Finally, sitting at their kitchen table, Ned tried to talk about it. I don't understand why you're still upset, he said carefully. You were talking to someone and didn't introduce me, so I talked to other people. What's the big deal? Frankie's blood boiled. How could he not see the difference? Logan had approached her. Those girls across the bar were a deliberate choice Ned made. One was passive, one was active, one was innocent, one was revenge. You could have just joined the conversation like a normal person, she shot back. Instead of standing there demanding attention like you needed my permission to exist. Ned's face showed frustration. I stood there for 2 minutes, Frankie. You didn't even acknowledge I was there, you completely ignored me. More excuses, Frankie thought. Always twisting things to make himself the victim. She'd seen how those girls had laughed at everything he said, how the blonde one touched his arm. She wasn't blind. But when she pointed this out, Ned just rolled his eyes. That gesture, that dismissive roll of the eyes, it ignited something dark inside her. Fine, she declared. Next time some girl approaches you, I'll just go find the hottest guy in the room and have a nice long chat. See how you like it. The look on his face told her she'd landed a blow. Good. Maybe now he'd understand. But things didn't get better. They got worse. Much worse. Frankie started noticing patterns she'd apparently missed before. Ned checking his phone more often, coming home later from work, being vague about his day. When she asked who he was texting at 10 at night, he got defensive. Just work stuff. Work stuff. The universal excuse for every unfaithful partner in history. When she asked to see his phone, he acted offended, like she was the one being unreasonable. Like her suspicions were unfounded, even though he'd literally flirted with other women right in front of her face. Then came the notification that changed everything. A message from someone named Tess. A new team member, Ned claimed. How convenient that this Tess person appeared right after the bar incident. How convenient that she was texting after hours. Frankie tested him by mentioning a male coworker named Dante had invited her to happy hour. Ned's reaction was immediate. Jealous, suspicious. Who's Dante? You've never mentioned him before. The hypocrisy was staggering. He could have his mysterious Tess, but she couldn't have work friends? As weeks passed, Frankie found herself reconnecting with an old college friend named Julian on social media. Their conversations were innocent, nostalgic, comforting, someone who actually listened to her instead of dismissing her feelings. When Ned discovered these messages, he exploded. So you're criticizing me for texting coworkers, but you're reconnecting with ex-boyfriends? First of all, Julian was never a boyfriend. Second, how dare Ned monitor her conversations while hiding his own? The projection was obvious. People who accuse others of cheating are usually the ones doing it themselves. Frankie suggested couples therapy. Ned laughed it off. We don't need some stranger telling us how to fix our marriage. Translation. He didn't want anyone calling him out on his behavior. He preferred to gaslight her in private. Then came the night that shattered everything. They'd planned dinner at a new restaurant downtown. Frankie's suggestion, since Ned never planned anything special anymore. She arrived on time, dressed nicely, hopeful that maybe they could reconnect over good food and wine. 45 minutes passed. No Ned, no call, no text. Just Frankie sitting alone while the waitress refilled her water glass with increasingly pitying glances. When he finally answered her sixth call, his response was casual. Oh shoot, I forgot. Got caught up with work. Caught up with work. Or caught up with Tess. Frankie told him not to bother coming. She was done waiting. She left the restaurant humiliated and furious, ending up at a trendy bar a few blocks away to calm her nerves with wine. That's where she ran into Julian. Pure coincidence. He was meeting friends but invited her to join when he saw how upset she was. For the first time in weeks, someone actually noticed when she was hurting. Someone actually cared. 3 drinks in, Frankie was laughing at old college stories, feeling lighter than she had in months. Then her phone buzzed. Ned had finally arrived at the restaurant 90 minutes late and was demanding to know where she was. She sent him her location. Not to apologize, to make him come to her. 20 minutes later, Ned stormed into the bar. The moment he saw her sitting with Julian, something in him snapped. So this is why you were so eager to go out tonight, he accused loudly. To meet up with him? Everyone was staring. Julian's friends watched like it was reality television. Frankie felt her face flush with embarrassment and anger. You stood me up, she reminded him coldly. Julian happened to be here. Ned's laugh was bitter. Right. Just like that guy at the bar just happened to be talking to you. I'm seeing a pattern, Frankie. Julian tried to explain they'd run into each other by chance, but Ned wasn't listening. He was in full paranoid mode, accusing her of planning this, of picking fights to justify cheating, of everything except his own behavior. You're the one who's been distant, Frankie fired back. You're the one coming home late. You're the one texting Tess at all hours. Ned's face changed at the mention of Tess. For just a moment, something guilty flickered in his eyes before anger covered it again. She's a coworker, he insisted, but his voice wavered. Whatever, Frankie snapped. You stood me up. I ran into a friend. Now you're throwing a tantrum in public. Grow up. Ned stared at her for a long moment. Then quietly, he said something she didn't expect. I came to the restaurant to tell you I got offered a promotion. It means relocating to Houston. I was late because I was meeting with the regional director about the details. He tossed an envelope on the table. Congratulations to us, I guess. Before Frankie could process this, he walked out. She sat there, mortified, with Julian and his friends still watching. Suspicious thoughts immediately flooded her mind. The timing was too convenient. This promotion probably didn't even exist. Just another lie to distract her from whatever was really happening with Tess. When Frankie got home, Ned was packing a bag. Not his entire wardrobe. Just enough for a few days. "I'm staying at a hotel," he said flatly. "I need space to think about this Houston offer, and apparently so do you." "So you're just leaving?" Frankie hadn't expected him to actually go. "What do you want from me?" Ned's voice cracked slightly. "You've been pushing me away for weeks. Tonight I find you with another guy. How am I supposed to take that?" "He's just a friend," Frankie insisted, though even she heard how cliché that sounded. "Yeah," Ned said, zipping his bag. "That's what you said about Logan, too." He headed for the door, then turned back one last time. "The Houston job starts in 3 weeks. Let me know if you're coming with me or if we're done here." 5 days of silence followed. 5 days of Frankie calling repeatedly, while Ned sent a single text. "Taking some time to think. We'll call when ready." Like he was the one who needed time. Like he was the injured party. Frankie called his office to verify the Houston promotion was real. The receptionist sounded strange when she mentioned Houston. When Frankie asked to speak to Tess, there was a long pause. "We don't have anyone by that name in this department." There it was. Proof. Tess didn't exist at the company, which meant she existed somewhere else, probably as the real reason Ned wanted to move to Houston. With Ned gone, Frankie had time to investigate. She hacked into his email using their anniversary as the password. She found hotel reservations for the coming weekend in Houston. For 2 people. 2 people. Supposedly for apartment hunting with his boss. Sure, Ned. His boss just happened to be sharing a hotel room with him. When Frankie confronted him via text, his explanation was smooth, rehearsed. His boss was coming along to scout the new office. They needed 2 beds, so they got a room together. Frankie wasn't buying it. She called her friend Zoe to vent, but Zoe's response was disappointing. "Maybe you should trust him. You did leave the restaurant to hang out with another guy." Even Zoe was turning this around on her. Everyone was gaslighting Frankie, making her feel crazy for noticing obvious red flags. Fine. If that's how everyone wanted to play it, Frankie could play too. She went through their finances and discovered more money in savings than she'd realized. Money she'd helped earn. She transferred half of it to a new account in her name only. Insurance policy for when this all fell apart. Ned called within an hour. First time he'd called in days. "What the hell, Frankie? You took money from our account?" "Half," she corrected. "My half. For my future. Since you've clearly moved on." "Moved on? I'm trying to secure our future." "And a cozy hotel room for 2. How convenient." There was a long pause. "You've been spying on me, going through my emails." "Wouldn't have to if you were honest with me." "Who is she, Ned? Is it Tess? Is that even her real name?" His laugh sounded hollow. "You've lost it, Frankie. Completely lost it. There is no she. The room has 2 beds because that's what they had available. My boss is flying in tomorrow. You can call the hotel yourself if you don't believe me." Frankie did call. The front desk confirmed the reservation had been modified recently. From 1 king bed to 2 queens. Changed right after she'd confronted him. Caught in another lie. Frankie stopped answering his calls. Let him feel what she'd been feeling. Instead, she reconnected with more people from her past. Old friends, former co-workers, even her ex Ryan, who'd become surprisingly successful. He owned his own business now and seemed very interested to hear she might be single soon. She posted a selfie online with a vague caption. "Sometimes new beginnings find you when you least expect it." Clear enough to send Ned a message, vague enough to maintain plausible deniability. Ned's sister called within minutes, asking what was happening. Frankie gave her the full story. The bar incident. The late nights. The mysterious Tess. The hotel room for 2. "He's always been crazy about you, Frankie," his sister said gently. "This doesn't sound like him." That was the problem. Everyone thought they knew Ned. Dependable, honest Ned. They didn't see what Frankie saw. They didn't know about his secrets, his lies, his double standards. 3 weeks after Ned left, everything collapsed. But not the way Frankie had expected. She'd been texting Ryan, just catching up, nothing serious. But he showed up at her apartment with wine, clearly expecting more than conversation. When she tried to clarify, he showed her their message history. Messages where she'd apparently said she was practically single and ready to explore options. Maybe she'd written that after too much wine one night. Maybe she didn't really mean it. But it was there in black and white. Ryan left angry. Then he ran into Julian at a bar. They compared notes. Julian showed Ryan screenshots of their conversations. Ryan sent everything to Ned. All of Frankie's venting about the marriage, her complaints about Ned's behavior, even flirty comments she'd made that were totally taken out of context. Ned came back to town, not to reconcile, with divorce papers. I saw the messages, Frankie, all of them, to Ryan, to Julian, even the ones to your friend about keeping your options open while I was away. Frankie tried to explain. These were private conversations, just blowing off steam, not actual plans to cheat. But Ned wasn't listening. You accuse me of lying, of cheating, while you're lining up replacements behind my back. How long has this been going on? Since before the bar incident? That's when realization hit Frankie like ice water. Ned might have been telling the truth all along, about Tess, who turned out to be Teresa, his 58-year-old department head. About the Houston promotion, which was completely real. About everything. She'd been so convinced he was lying that she couldn't see the truth, but it was too late for realizations. I'm still taking the Houston job, Ned said quietly. Alone. I deserve better than this, Frankie. He posted about their separation online. Nothing dramatic. Just changed his relationship status and wrote something about new beginnings. Stealing her line. Everyone immediately took his side. Frankie's phone exploded with messages from friends asking what she'd done. Not what happened, what she did. Like it was automatically her fault. Zoe finally revealed she'd known about the Houston promotion for weeks. Ned had asked her advice on how to convince Frankie to move. He'd been planning a surprise trip to show her the city. He was trying to make things work while she was checking out. The screenshots Ryan and Julian shared made Frankie look terrible, toxic. The things she'd said about Ned, about their marriage, about her backup plans, it all looked so much worse laid out in text, stripped of context. Then came the final blow. Ned's sister called to say he was already moving on. Not with Tess or any mystery woman. With Lila, his college girlfriend who lived in Houston. They'd reconnected when he went to look at apartments. They're taking things slow, his sister said. But she makes him happy. He smiles again. Meanwhile, Frankie's life was imploding. Her boss called her in to discuss concerning behavior. She'd been erratic at work, confrontational. Now she was on probation. One more slip and she'd be fired. Her friends had mostly taken Ned's side. He was the injured party, the victim of her paranoia and emotional manipulation. Even people who'd known her for years questioned their entire friendship based on how she'd treated Ned. She tried calling him one last time. His number was blocked. She emailed instead, pouring her heart out, admitting mistakes. His response was a single line. Please direct all future communication through my attorney. That night, she saw pictures online of Ned and Lila at a restaurant in Houston, both smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. The comments were full of support. You deserve happiness. Fresh start. She's gorgeous. Not one person wondered about Frankie's side. The next morning, an email from their landlord arrived. Ned had paid the lease through the end of the month. After that, she was on her own. She couldn't afford the place by herself, especially if she lost her job. The money she'd taken from their account was already running low after 3 weeks of retail therapy and expensive wine nights alone. Frankie still believed deep down that she hadn't done anything truly wrong. Maybe she was suspicious. Maybe she checked his phone. Maybe she vented to friends. But he was the one who flirted with those girls at the bar. He was the one who didn't introduce her to his coworkers at that Christmas party. He was the one who left when things got tough. Yet somehow, she became the villain in the story. The toxic ex everyone was glad he escaped. The cautionary tale people whisper about at dinner parties. Meanwhile, Ned got his promotion, his fresh start, and a girlfriend who apparently made him smile again. This story isn't just about Frankie and Ned. It's about what happens when we let our insecurities dictate our reality. When we interpret every action through a lens of suspicion. When we convince ourselves that we're the victim so completely that we become blind to our own harmful behavior. Sometimes the person we trust least shouldn't be our partner. It should be our own paranoid thoughts. Frankie destroyed her marriage not because Ned was unfaithful, but because she was so certain he would be that she pushed him away. She created the very reality she feared most. This is Emma, reminding you that trust isn't just about believing your partner. It's about believing in yourself enough not to let fear make your decisions for you. If this story resonated with you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please hit that like button. Share this video with friends who might benefit from Frankie's painful lesson. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss these real-life stories that teach us about love, loss, and the complicated truth about human relationships. Remember, every story has two sides. Sometimes the hardest part is admitting which side you're really on. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care of your hearts and take care of each other.